vouching. Now, the story is about franchising. Yeah, franchising is the idea that somebody owns a business, and then because he wants to focus on other things, they can then outsource the business itself to other people who will run. You find this popular with things like restaurant chains, hotel chains, and so on and so forth. Softwares, you have those kind of things. So you actually have the owner in one country, and then they have representatives in other countries selling the same product at different arrangements. So the idea behind that is just that it gives that business opportunity to go in other places where the original owner cannot reach. Now, to be factual, this already existed in Nigeria. We've done it extensively. Mm-hmm. I had worked with an organization where we represented such an institution in Nigeria. And by and large, because there were no legal framework in Nigeria, a lot of people who take these franchises are at the mercy of the original owner, because the contracts for the franchise are done to their own advantage. For example, in terms of
Party A will always have the
advantage. How much it is to subscribe, what are the basis of returns, who does the employment, what are the terms of engagement, and so on. So many things are, even up to the point that when there is a dispute, even in the contract, they write that they will use the law of the country of the franchisor, not the laws of Nigeria, to settle disputes. So like, and look, we're looking at it this way. Everybody accepts that, okay, if we are 200 million, the largest population in Africa, there is a big market here. Everybody wants to have those things here. So people here who take up this who take up these franchises need to be protected by laws that are domesticated to us, that will give them advantage to make businesses, to make successful businesses of whatever the franchise they are taking on. So I think that it is coming late, but it's better than never. And that if we're able to put this in place, and I think that all people who are in franchises today should not just sit back and wait for this, they should actively participate in this legal framework that the government is putting together, so that their experiences today can help make the law better. Exactly. Better. So basically, that's just it. It's a good move. I think that all of us who have experiences in this should join the government in making this law to perfect and protect Nigerian businesses, as it were.
All right, now we've got Devoe on as well. Devoe Okorie, welcome. It's Freshly Pressed on Wednesday.
Morning. Cool. Where's the cash?
Oh, let's get into that, because the big story of the day is just how much we'll be able to withdraw over the counter on a weekly basis and from the ATMs on a daily basis. From the Premium Times, CBN limits cash withdrawals to 100,000 naira weekly. So it has come out with the different amounts that we'll be able to see on an individual level and on a corporate basis that are going to take effect from January 9th, 2023. In a memo that was issued on Tuesday, the Apex Bank directed all banks and other financial institutions to ensure that over-the-counter cash withdrawals by individuals and corporate entities do not exceed 100,000 naira and 500,000 naira weekly. Devoe, how's that going to play into a living life in Nigeria where we have network challenges and so on and so forth? Although, yes, we are gearing ourselves and trying to make ourselves an almost 100% cashless society. How do you think that's going to work? How do you think this move is going to work?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. First of all, I thank you for mentioning the date, 9th of January. That is when it is effective, because many people, having heard this yesterday, I'm sure many people started thinking about how they're going to stock up on cash. But you do have, between now, don't worry, you'll have enough cash for the Christmas period to be able to adjust to this. Now, let's break it down a bit, because the CBN, again, is literally working. They said they're trying to check inflation, counterfeiting, and corruption, and that we know as a vote buying, which is part of the same initiative with the Naira redesign. Now, with the above over-the-counter withdrawals. It's about 100,000 per week for individual, 500 for corporation, right? Companies. Two, they also mentioned that if you want to withdraw above that, it will attract a 5% charge, which means that if I'm taking 100,000 extra after taking the maximum 100,000, I will pay 5,000 naira. And for corporates, they will pay 10,000 naira. So you can see that punitive, right? And for ATM withdrawals, which are a major form of cash withdrawals and distribution currently, they're limiting it to 20,000 naira per day for individual, which means that at the end of the week, you will only have still that same 100,000. Now, the question there, especially with the ATM withdrawals, is since they're also saying that it will be a maximum of the use of the 200 naira notes, would that withdrawal be one withdrawal of 50 notes to give you the 20,000? Or will it be one withdrawal giving you 10 notes, which is about 2,000 naira, or 20 notes, which is about 4,000 naira? That means you'll have to withdraw like 5 times. Those details we don't know. Also, we don't know, will a charge apply for each of those withdrawals if the maximum note is 200 naira? I mean, these are all considerations that many people are going to have on their minds. Now, while CBN is trying to implement this cashless idea, I don't think it should be forced, even though they're looking at some form of a solution, right? They've done this before and they had to reverse it because Nigeria is largely a cash market. Now, the question is—
But isn't that the whole point, Devoe, that we are, but we need not to be, according to CBN? So how are they going to start?
Yeah, so that's my point. So have they put into these considerations? Because do regular folks transfer? If I want to buy gbegiri and amala at the local buka, am I going to transfer? Do the merchants have enough POSs to go around? Are they willing to accept it, either physical or electronic? How ready are folks, that's what I'm referring to the mass market, in adopting even the other option of the PBS operators, that's the Momos and the smart mobile money operators. Now, while POS operators have aided cash distribution, okay, currently, is the infrastructure, the supporting infrastructure for this whole transition, is it available? You spoke of bad network. You have to talk about devices. People need devices. Are CBN going to distribute those devices? They need data in some instances, or they need to have airtime in some instances. They also have, banks need to have efficient software. They also have reconciliation efficiency, because you'll hear many people complaining that, oh, they made a transaction, it's either hanging, it didn't go, I sent it, you didn't reverse it, it's taking so long.
You have to go back to your bank to sort it out.
Even the anti-fraud support for those who made a transfer and then all of a sudden it showed in my account, it disappeared from my account. Or all of a sudden I started seeing debits and I didn't know where they came from. All this is required to balance this transition. And this is what I'm hoping that the CBN, I don't even want to say I'm hoping, there are more people going to be affected from this, even though the CBN is almost targeting the work of the corrupt politicians to try and address vote buying, as well as curb inflation. But you see, you don't play politics with economics. Because in the long run, this kind of transition, like M-Pesa in Kenya, should be consumer-led and not Gestapo, not forced. Let it be that Nigerian citizens on their own begin to see the benefits of the use of these electronic platforms and means and begin to use it. Because at the end of the day,
considering the fact, by the way, can I just put in that we have seen electronic payments growing, and they have been growing. It's not been on a downward trend.
Which is a good sign.
Lakunle, you wanted to chip in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I have a contrary opinion here. I would start by saying that I think that yes, the government will be putting the cart before the horse, in the perspective that before you start something this what's the English now? Before you start something like this, there needs to be a lot of information out there. Sensitization, let people know what you're doing, let them understand the benefits, how to get it done, and things like that, like you said. So having said that, but then we also agree that like we always say at this table most of the time, that the country is broke. Yeah. We were talking about.
Well, there's some
okay.
Some people agree, some don't.
Okay, so we will say that, for example, that we want to print money. The cost of printing a 1,000 naira note in Nigeria is more than 1,000 naira. Do we want to spend the money we are struggling to find to do other things, to print notes? Do we want to spend, do we want to go that route again? So and then because it didn't, because we also know that there are many things that we want to correct, it's going to be difficult, yes. But do we want to maintain the status quo because the change will be difficult? There are things that we need to do. We need to take action on some things. I don't think particularly that it may be coming at the wrong time. It may be coming at a short notice. The duration given for us to start doing it may be short and all that. But the point is that we still need to make a consideration for this thing. If we do electronic transactions, is it cheaper for the country? Yes, it is. Is it going to be difficult to change people to adopt it? Yes, it is. So would we then say that because it's difficult to do, tell me what is it that we want to make changes of in Nigeria today that's not going to be difficult? If we say we are taking off subsidy from petrol, it's difficult. If we say we're going to stop, we're going to introduce fees in universities, it's difficult. But we know that there are advantages at the end of the day for doing all those things.
But remember, Lakunle, though, this is a difficulty that's going to, and like with everything else that you have mentioned, it's going to have a real and tangible effect.
Absolutely.
People spending habits, will they not change if it is difficult for you to spend money?
That is part of what we're saying, that so that some of the things, for example, I as a person, I possibly will say that I'm an impulsive buyer. So if I don't hold cash and I see something I want to buy, for example, I would not buy it at that point in time. It gives an opportunity to think twice about it. There are so many of us Nigerians that are like that.
Great for the individual, not exactly. Great for the business.
I'm saying, if those are the kind of considerations that will bring on the table, those are part of the kind of arguments that the sensitization will bring forth for us to say that, look, by doing this helps you to do so and so things. So for me, I don't think that we should look at the bad part of it only. Let us also consider the good part. So, and then we form a balanced opinion of it.
All right, what we have to do right now is take a break, but we'll be back with more, and I'll be reading out all your messages on the other side of this. Okay, we have quite a number of messages. So when we get back, so we have quite a number of messages. So when we get back, we will be. Okay, let's see. Rural areas, Fabian, Cruz, cashless transactions, Shega Adeyemo, 6 failed POS transactions, and that's the thing. It's these failed. Huh? What do you say?
They're going to have a war.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting. Well, Emefiele has been talking very tough on this. Would you expect, and would you think that there would be any sort of reversal or tweaking as we go forward?
This policy. Yeah. I think there will be extension.
Extension. Getting back into Freshly Pressed and getting into your messages right here, going over to WhatsApp on 0809-440-981. This message, D from Alausa, says the cashless policy is a good one and should be encouraged. All changes will have challenges and there will be resistance to change. What Devoe should be talking about is how those challenges can be overcome as this policy comes into effect. And D says, well done, Lakunle. Fabian from Ekpe says, I wonder if the CBN considered rural areas and places where there are few banks and poor network, not to talk of people who neither have nor use ATM cards. A good idea instituted poorly will yield bad results. Cruz asks, will the onion, tomato, beef, and pure water sellers do cashless transactions with their customers? Whilst Shegun says, Shegun Adeyemo says, I have about 6 failed POS transactions from Black Friday purchases that are yet to be reversed, and these transactions total about 400,000 naira, which I have had to settle with cash eventually. I'm tired of Mr. Emefiele's cashless enforcement. Dami from Ikorodu. It cost me about 1,600 naira to set up my cashless facility on a new account I opened up this month. The bank charged me over 50 naira for a single transaction. Banks and telcos routinely trade barbs over USSD charges. All this in an economy where the average income is was less than 11,500 naira in 2019. No worries. This will end as it always does. As long as it's cheaper to trade in cash, we will continue to do so. This next message, Wale says, typical of government, make a decision without putting in place the required structures. God help us if you need to make a transaction and phone network or bank apps mess. Oh gosh, hasn't it already happened so many times? He goes on to say, it might be a good idea, but I'm not sure we're ready for it now. It should be a gradual process until we get there. And Tunde says, so how does the CBN want people that go to buy farm produce and livestock from rural areas? How does CBN want them to pay for such or for food vendors to pay for large items that they buy in local markets in Ibadan, Elisha, and etc. Ade from Lagos says, how many people will withdraw 20,000 naira daily? You can still pay for your buka food of 1K with cash. There are different forms of cash mop-up. It's not difficult to spend. Even Lakunle doesn't withdraw 20,000 naira daily. How do you know? Lakunle looks like a big boy to me. He might be withdrawing 500K daily. You never know. Deji says the financial institutions need to take up sensitization roles. Banking must evolve with smooth transition and transactions. The banks will and should be held accountable if and when this becomes difficult. And the messages keep coming in. I'll take some from YouTube. Ibukun says, can we say boldly that Nigerians are ready for this? Well, what's a leading question? That Nigerians are ready for this unnecessary and unwanted restrictions. Whilst Wilfred Macaulay says, I see this as a disruptive move in the right direction, particularly for the fintech sector. All right, let's move things along now. And the next article that we are going to touch on comes in from the Vanguard newspaper. Okay. Naseni, technology to stop crude oil theft and bunkering coming soon. So this, according to President Buhari, who yesterday said that we, the nation of Nigeria, are making progress on inventions in the last 7.5 years with the repositioning of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. Devoe, I'll come to you for this one real quickly.
Okay, Buhari was speaking about the progress that Nasani, that's the Nigerian
National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure.
Science and Engineering Infrastructure, and saying in the past they have aided the development a lot of technology-driven initiatives, like in defense. They were part of the production evolution for the APCs and the MRAPs. For agriculture, they helped in some irrigation and tractor recovery initiatives. Also in power, they were also aiding solar cell production within Nigeria. Well, he said in the few years to come, the same agency, in a bid to meet up with a global standard, will be aiding in some innovations in deterring crude oil theft and bunkering. Well, sometimes I really wonder when these sound, because this is a country that has fought technological application when it suits them. And that's the part that has to do with when politics begins to mix in with economics. You know how much we debated the electronic transmission use for election before it was signed in. Even till date, e-voting and diaspora voting hasn't been allowed. And that was actually a function of technology, which would have strengthened the democratic position within this country. Two, is there really a technology coming that will address crude oil theft and bunkering? Because I think those technologies already exist in terms of surveillance technology, in terms of transparent accountability and reporting. I mean, if you move crude from one terminal to the other, a meter should be able to tell you that 2 million barrels has gone into that ship, one. Secondly, when that ship is in motion, what they call GPS readings are supposed to have already been invented. You can even do same with your phone. Just the same way we track planes, we can also track ships. When that ship is moving its crew to another ship, I think that technology already exists. When the payment is being made for the content of that ship, I think it's already clear technology is available to confirm whether that payment went to the right quarters, like governments, or it went into private pockets. So to an extent, I really wonder what the president is talking about, because they're still pushing the narrative that we don't know how ghosts come into the country and steal our crude. And I don't think that is the right position to push towards our children, who will grow up to find out that we were all aware of how crude oil was being stolen and we did nothing about it.
So, Devoe, what I'm going to do is bring Lakunle to this conversation, because you've asked some pointed questions, but then we also have this next bit of news, which comes in from the Punch. Federal government sets up panel to probe oil theft. If you say we already know what's happening, then what's this panel for? Lakunle, let me get to you. So it's an 11-man special investigative panel that was inaugurated by the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, retired, and that's to look into cases of oil theft and oil losses in the country. So are you walking hand in hand with Devoe on your stance on this? Or do you have another point?
You notice all the while before Devoe was speaking, I had a smile on my face because I was thinking of the story in relation to what he was saying. And here we are, in my honest opinion, this committee is a waste of time, a waste of Nigeria's resources. There is nothing this committee is going to come up with in 10 years, that if they have 10 years to work, that we don't already know today, right? We're playing ostrich with this matter. We are playing ostrich with this matter. We know the people who do these things. These things are big. They are not things that you put in your pocket and walk out with. I always refer to African Pride in 2006 or 2007 in Apapa here. A ship that was arrested and kept here. And one day it disappeared. And today we still don't know where African Pride is. So if we know that, so what else is it that this committee is going to come up with that we don't already know? I think it's a waste of our time, a distraction from the real matters that we need to be speaking to. Here, where we just talk about not having money to do important things. So this committee will sit, they will have a budget for their cities, they will spend money to print a report that would, at the end of the day, sit on the top of a shelf that would not be implemented. Let's move on to the next story.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's do that before Lakunle has a head exploding moment. Business day now. CBN's next rate decision seen hanging on food inflation. Devoe, take us through this very quickly. We've got a couple of minutes before the show ends.
Right. The NPR, which was shifted in Q3 to about 16.5%, was a move by the CBN to try to curb inflation, given the fact that if you can raise rates above inflation, it should be able to stop reduce spending. But however, you see, the point here is we haven't seen the inflation drop. Food inflation is already at a high of about almost between 22 and 23%, which is at an all-time high across the past 20 years. And what that means is that, as most people know, food is coming at 50, 100% more than you used to get it for. I mean, just check the bag of rice or the tuber of yam. I remember I used to buy one tuber for 1,000 or less. Now they're telling me 3,000, 4,000. I'm like, what are you talking about? Now, you see, the point is monetary policy, all these attempts by the CBN to address inflation are not really effective, because monetary policy will only be weak when there is a struggling fiscal environment. And fiscal environment I'm referring to here is the weak revenue that government is earning. So one, you're losing revenue to crude theft, you're losing revenue to PMS subsidy, which is practically half of what you earn. You're not having so much of non-oil export growth, because the country we have huge debt management that we're struggling with. And we're finding it difficult to phase out the existing subsidies like PMS, the foreign exchange policy, and electrical bills. So this is now compounded by what you refer to as the national inequality. about 5% of Nigeria has about 90% of the money in circulation. So generally, many people don't have the funds that they need. So when you talk about all these rates increases and etc., literally it's affecting the bulk of Nigerians. So at the end of the day, when we have to pay higher interest rates, especially with the fact that food itself was already increasing, it makes it even harder for Nigerians to exist. And with the insecurity taking place, it means it's going to be difficult for farmers to get their goods to the markets, which also compound and drive food prices up. So the real onus here is not the CBN. The real onus here is the federal government and how they go about managing the fiscal economy.
All right, let's just end the show with some of your messages. Going over to YouTube, Jennifer says, I did an online transaction since November 8th that failed, and I've been going back and forth with my bank for the reversal, and now they want to do this. Niger movie part 2. Speaking about things that will affect people and funds, Digi from Isola says, does the CBN governor have an idea of the high cost of commodities in this country? He needs to increase the figures to a reasonable mark. Thank you and good morning. Cisco Delgado says, Lakunle, thank you for saying my mind's on the panel. The 11-man panel. It's an absolute waste of time and resources, says Cisco Delgado. And Peter from Festac, I think this will be the final message, says, set up a committee that will submit a report, then the report will be trashed. The Sovereign National Conference that Goodluck Jonathan set up have the recommendations being acted on. The Lekki Massacre panel, did the government comply? Now setting up a committee for oil theft, committee that will be set up by the same people that are stealing the crude. I beg, next news, says Peter from Festac. And we end the show here. Thank you so much, Devoe. And thank you, Lakunle, whom you can find at Lakunle70 up on Twitter. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been an interesting one, and looking forward to your thoughts, people. 9 o'clock Lagos Talks. Let's talk about what the CBN has done and how we're going to navigate life with 100,000 naira.